Oh my goodness, that's a tall order. And we usually try to resist from having to define terms and terminology. But conflict in general is misunderstanding, not having the same views, and not having any common ground. And we really believe it's part and parcel of life.
Yes.
Conflict is not something that is so terrible. Conflict is part of life. What matters really is how you deal with that conflict.
We are now in Valentine's. By the way, happy Valentine's.
Thank you.
Once upon a time, people lived harmoniously. And one wonders what triggers conflict, what triggered conflict. Does it have a biblical context, Mrs. Kashunju?
Why take it to the Bible? Well, conflict, as Stella has already said, it's part and parcel of life. The very fact of me being different from you, that is already a conflict. And it all depends on how we deal with each other.
Yes.
You having different views from mine should not be create something terrible. At times when we talk about conflict, people jump to violence. There is a difference between conflict and violence. Conflict, a disagreement, we disagree, but we don't exchange blows. But when we fail to look at this disagreement positively, if we look at it negatively, then we turn to violence, because I try to make you agree with my views, and if you don't, by hook or by crook, then if you don't, and I still insist, then we fight. And that is when conflict turns into violence.
Mrs. Sabiiti, why did you start the Center for Conflict Resolution?
It was precisely because of the reasons we've said, that people tend to run away from conflict. They tend to pretend it doesn't exist, or if it's really there in front of them, the way they respond to conflict is by exchanging blows. So you do something bad to me, I do something bad to you in return. But then how about those who are weaker than us? What do they do? And if you do something bad to me and I do something bad to you in return, is there going to be an end to this conflict? No. So we were concerned at the way people in Uganda, all of us, were responding to conflict, to disagreements and so on, returning blow for blow, an eye for an eye. And definitely that does not take away the problem. So we thought, why don't we start an organization to give people skills of being able to understand what conflict is, to distinguish it from violence, as Angelica has said, and then find positive ways of dealing with it. Because actually conflict is an opportunity given to you to enhance a relationship. And that's what we are going around giving to the people.
May I add something to that, Paul?
Yes.
Conflict, usually we think about it with development.
Yes.
Without conflict, there wouldn't be any development at all.
Yes.
And that is the positive way of looking at it. And we always see that after the conflict, you are never the same. And that never the same can be in the positive direction or negative direction. So Center for Conflict Resolution is trying to make people look at it positively. There must be development. If I see you have something beautiful and I want to have it, instead of stealing yours, which would be violent, I try to find a way of doing something. And that gives me, I develop from stage 1 to stage 2. I do something which develops me, I get a beautiful something which I envied from you, and at the same time I've opened up a way forward for myself. So conflict is not always.
Being at the Center for Conflict, where have you identified an area very prone that is that would appropriately be tackled at very fast?
We believe, you can't believe this, we believe that everybody is attacked by conflict, every single one of us. So we want to reach everyone. If we can't do it ourselves, we'll go through other people. So that's why we have the strategy of training of trainers, and every one person we reach out to, we give them those skills to go back home and spread the word, or spread the skills. So basically we target each and everyone, but then there are those who are in emergency situations, really. So we have identified refugee communities in different parts of Uganda. We've identified, of course, the regions in Uganda that are still undergoing violent conflict. We look at the women. You know, when there is conflict, usually the men run. Either they are in the bush or they've run away because they're saving their lives because they think they are the target, and then they leave the women and the children behind. You know, so we also reach out to the women. We look at the education sector, and we work with them, the police, the soldiers, and many others.
When did you start resolving conflict?
Oh, this is my 21st year.
Oh, that's very good.
I don't know if I'm succeeding. I don't know, sometimes I don't want to leave my home when I read the newspapers. But at least we plant the seed.
And what are your objectives and aims at the Center for Conflict Resolution?
Mainly is to help people have the skills and the capacity to deal with problems. See, many times, and I think this is a problem, I don't know where from, we are used to just not being able to take our own lives in our own hands. We leave the decisions to be made by other people at all different levels. And because of that, when there is trouble, we also lay back and wait for other people to come and solve our problems. And when they come, first of all, they will not help us to deal with our problems that efficiently because they weren't there when those problems were started. And also they can't be exactly in our shoes to experience that problem. And thirdly, some people come in to help, but with hidden agenda. All those things. Sometimes they come really willing to help, but because they are not in that experience, exactly like you, they may not know how to go about it. So we thought, no, people have to have the skills and we're there to help them. That's one. And then two, also we're trying to do research on the positive African methods or mechanisms of dealing with conflict.
Tackling it appropriately.
Yes, Africa is painted as a dark, violent continent. It isn't so. What is happening in Africa is also happening in other parts of the world. But because history has been written in a negative way about Africa, we're trying to overturn that and to show that there's things which are very much positive in the African values and so on. The positive ways of dealing with conflict, which also ends in reconciliation.
And what have you achieved at the Center for Conflict Resolution, Mrs. Kashunju?
Well, I think history, tells the achievement of Center for Conflict Resolution. One thing, when we started, this conflict resolution was something which was, people were not sure of what it could achieve. But today, Center for Conflict Resolution is being invited from all over Uganda, even outside Uganda, to go and help to train people, or to go and kind of get involved where there is conflicts and trying to find means and ways of resolving these things. So that is an achievement for Center for Conflict Resolution. Again, we've had interactions with the international agents like United Nations, like OAU, IGAD, there's this COMESA. We've been with the media. We've held about how many workshops for the media?
Several, because we are targeting the media to be on our side to deliver the message.
And we've been struggling that the media should also present peaceful means of resolving conflict rather than simply screaming at violence. Isn't there something that is being done in order to quell the violence? So Center for Conflict Resolution has achieved that. We have also trained several people as trainers, and we hope to continue with the group that we started with, so that when they are away in their own homes or organizations, they can handle conflict efficiently. And I think that's a very big achievement.
Mrs. Sabiiti, do you have more achievements you have done? Maybe she hasn't tackled.
Well, when you're working on peace, sometimes it's very difficult to blow your own trumpet, but I think we have to get to learn to do that. I've just returned from a month's work, for 1 month, the whole of January, in Liberia, Monrovia in Liberia. That's a place that many people don't want to go.
Because of the war?
Yes, because of the aftermath of the war. And of course, there is all the neighboring countries, Sierra Leone, now Ivory Coast, and so on. There's terrible problems. Guinea, Liberia is also involved in all those things. But because I was invited by the Ministry of Education, I said, what a chance. Maybe they want to turn around.
Yes.
Yeah, they're thinking about the future. So I agreed to go. So we've done that. We've also been invited by women in top security positions in Asia, especially after India and Pakistan test their nuclear weapons. That was 98, 99. We go to Europe. We go all over the place in the Asia Pacific region. We do all those things.
What problems do you face at the Center for Conflict Resolution, Mrs. Sabiiti?
Well, as usual, funding. But that doesn't scare us, because the way we started it, we wanted, if you want to deal with conflict, you have to be innovative and very fast and very creative every day. So when we started this center, we never went to anybody for funding. We started with the few resources we had ourselves and our families. But generally speaking, now that we are known in more places and we are really expected to deliver, the problem is that we don't have enough funding to do that, but I think that is picking up. And then also people who are cynical, who really believe in violence, violence being the answer. But then also it's a blessing in disguise that when we work with these people who are promoting violence, at the end of the workshop they say, yeah, we thought so, but we thought it was a stupid idea because nobody around us, nobody else seems to be doing that, so we think that's a stupid, cowardly way, but now you prove to us that it works. So I think, yes, we do have obstacles, but we like to focus on the positive things, because we have it in all of us to do things very positively.
Mrs. Kashunju, conflict is a very wide scope. Where has the center exhaustively addressed?
Well, for example, Stella has talked about the refugees, and that is people who have suffered from war, run away from war, and as refugees, not all that they are accepted in the country of their asylum. So you find that kind of discontent, discomfort, and we've been able to reach them. And there is also failure to have dialogue, and we've done a lot on emphasizing to have dialogue, mediate between the different groups which are conflicting, and teaching people how to negotiate. If you need something, I need something, how do we come to compromise and we negotiate rather than simply grab or what. And I think we've tried in that, and the media also. We've spent the whole year of last year. We had so much about the media, and we hope maybe you are also a result of that indirectly. Although you have never attended our workshop, that is one good thing. And this media has not only been Uganda media, but internationally.
The BBC, the Voice of America, the UN agencies working on the media, and so on.
That's encouraging. What are the elements of conflict, Mrs. Sabiiti?
Elements. What I know, I brought something here. I don't know if the camera can see this. Can you see this? This is a bush beetle or dung beetle. And I think in some Western languages from Western Uganda, they say Echanda Busa, Kisanda Busa or something, Chienda Mazi, and things like that. But we go all over the world with this insect, this beetle, and we're collecting names.
What's the secret behind that beetle?
Now, the significance of this beetle, when we were being trained, we all got trained abroad. So we're given imagery and things, analogy, which were in the Western world. So we're told that conflict begins very small, but it picks up, if you don't deal with it immediately and positively, it picks up speed, gathers, it starts with only 1-2 people, but before long it gathers other people. It starts with one issue maybe, or just 2 issues. Before long it has gathered so many issues, and then they use a snowball effect. Snowball effect. We always hear that. But when we are working with communities and any other people in Africa, we've never seen snow. Somehow it doesn't make much sense. So we had to be creative, as I said, and we looked for something African which has a snowball effect. Now this doodoo, this beetle, goes to a pool of dung, like cow dung or animal dung or whatever dung, and it uses its legs. I don't remember my biology, or was it physics? I don't know. I forgot. I wasn't
biology.
Biology, yes. It uses its feet to gather just a small ball of dung, and then it rolls that small dung around in the rest of the dung, and as it does that, the
becomes
dung
big.
ball becomes big.
Yes.
Bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it doesn't stop there. This beetle takes that ball of dung to its nest, which could be a mile away or whatever. And as it's moving, it moves backwards, right? It moves backwards with the
Pushing
ball,
the dung
pushing the
behind.
dung,
Pushing it
and
behind.
it goes this way,
Yes.
this way. And as it does that, the ball of dung is picking up small stones, dead insects,
Yes.
some pieces of grass, all sorts of things. So when you break, we ask our participants, if I break open that ball of dung, which is usually bigger than this beetle, what do you find? And they analyze that. It's exactly the same way that conflict develops, exactly the same as this ball. So if you can, at home, wherever you are, if you can picture that ball of dung still fresh, collecting all sorts of things along the way, then you can understand. And I think I would like to ask to add to this, because we ran a workshop in Tesla and in Karamoja.
Yes,
It was a wonderful
And we used this beetle, and the Karamojong call it lokolonyo.
Lokolonyo.
And being with cattle, obviously they have observed it. They even have dances. They dance like it. They use their behinds, they go.
So the
pushing
example
each other.
suits them very well.
It suits them very well. And they actually looked at it and says, no, for us Karamojongs, we behave like this lokolonyo. We collect so many problems and we push them behind. We don't see where we are going.
Yeah.
And even coming back, it traces a scent, a very dirty smell it leaves behind. So if it's coming back, can't see in front. It goes down looking, smelling its way back. Then they analyze and says, where are we going? Our behavior, cattle rustling and the rest have kept us backwards. And it was so beautiful, they said, it is time we stop it. They analyzed this lokolonyo thing and they looked at their own
Does this lokolonyo, the beetle, let's say, apply in Western Uganda, for instance, Tororo? I mean Toro.
Toro.
Fort Poto.
Well, Fort Poto